Let me know if this inspires you to create anything. You can find me on Twitter at Jessica Garson. I also work at Twitter as a developer advocate, so that's exciting. And code for this talk can be found at github.com/twitterdev/parking. And we have our own URL shortener that's t.co/parking. So you'll see a lot of these t.co links throughout my slides. So you can find my slides at t.co/parking if you want to follow along with me. And now let's talk about what was happening in my life that inspired me to build a solution with Python. So how many people here have a car in New York? Wow, one really brave person raised their hand. Let's give him a round of applause. Cool, so I actually just recently got rid of my car, but I used to have a car in New York. And it's a really hard thing. How many people have a car in a different city? Okay, less brave, but still cool. How many people have had alternate side of the street parking restrictions? Okay, cool. So we're gonna be talking all about that. I promise this talk isn't gonna be me ranting about alternate side of the street parking for 25 minutes, but yeah, please stop me if it is. So yeah, I live in Brooklyn, and I had a car. This was not my car. I wish it was my car. But I saw this in the wild, and if you notice, there's like an orange, I think it's like an envelope sort of thing on top of the car. So that's a parking ticket. And parking tickets in New York cost a lot of money. How many people have gotten a parking ticket in New York before? Wow, a lot of people are raising their hands. They're like a $65 to $150 endeavor. So you don't want to get them. They're not that fun. So I kind of developed this routine that I was like moving my car every single day at 9 o'clock. I actually looked at traffic pattern data for my neighborhood to figure out like when was the best time to move my car. That's gonna be my next talk I give next year at Pi Gotham. But yeah, so I was like, all right, if I move my car at 9 o'clock every night, then I don't have to worry about getting a parking ticket, and I get to like walk every night. And one night, I went out to move my car at 9 o'clock, as I do every day, and I noticed, I was like, wow, okay, so I can't find parking. This is really weird. Like, I usually can find parking, but all the spots are taken. I was driving around for like a really long time. I get back home, and my roommate says to me, they're like, Jess, did you go to a party? Like, what? Like, where were you? Did you go to a show? Like, did you run into a friend? And I'm like, no, I was looking for parking. And they're like, you were gone for a long time. And I was like, yeah, I couldn't find a spot. And they're like, you know, there's a holiday tomorrow, so you don't have to move your car. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't know. And they showed me this really cool Twitter handle, New York alternate side of the street parking. And it tweets every day at 7:30 and 4 p.m. And it tells you when you don't have to move your car. So I was like, wow. And they also tweet in emergency situations as well. So I was like, wow, cool. Maybe I should build something with this. So you might be wondering, you're like, Jess, so why were you moving your car so much? Like, I don't understand. Like, what are these alternate side of the street parking restrictions anyways? Like, why were you doing this? And so the reason why is, so in the neighborhood that I live in, there is two sides of the street. On the right side of the street, you have, all neighborhoods have two sides of the street, but on the right side of the street, you have to move your car on Mondays and Thursdays. And on the left side of the street, you move your car on Tuesdays and Fridays. So that means that every day you basically have to move your car, and you're like always moving your car, right? So in my neighborhood, it's 9:30 to 12:30. And so it's a 2-hour block. Different neighborhoods have different restrictions. Some places are lucky and they only have to move their car 1 day of a week. I don't live in one of those neighborhoods. But I was moving my car way too much, and I was like, you know, I found out that like another time I moved my car, there was like a emergency situation. I didn't have to move my car. So this was happening a lot. And so I built a solution, because I'm a developer, using Twitter data and Twilio to send myself a text message when I don't have to move my car. The only notifications I really look at are my texts. So that was sort of why I chose to use Twilio, so I could send myself a text message. And Twitter is the best place to find that information. So let's talk a little bit about how I solved this problem and do an overview of the solution. So I needed to get the tweets from NYC ASP, the Twitter handle. I needed to see if the words suspended and tomorrow appeared in the same tweet. And I needed to get a text message when the right words appeared. And I also needed to run this on a server so the process repeats with no effort for me. So let's talk about the high-level process for creating tweets. So I used the get tweets, or I got the tweets that we wanted using the search tweets wrapper for Python. And you can actually take a look at that. There's a link to it in my GitHub that I linked to at the beginning of the slide. But you can also see the GitHub README file for the Python Twitter Search API wrapper, which is really awesome, and it lets you work with Twitter data more robustly. And then I also needed to connect to Twilio, and I needed to run this on a server using a cron job. How many people have heard of cron jobs? Show of hands. Cool, like most people in the room. Awesome. So cron jobs basically let you run a task or run a script over and over again based on a time that you set, which was perfect for this because the Twitter handle that we were pulling from tweets every day at the same time, twice a day. So I used the Twitter Endpoint Premium Search. And Premium Search is a 30-day endpoint, or lets you search for 30 days. And it allows you to create a query and use that to access the tweet archive. And tweets are basically posted as soon as they are with like up to the minute granularity. So that was pretty perfect what I needed. The reason why I chose the 30-day endpoint was that 30 days gave me enough time to debug. This only happens like maybe 1 to 3 times a month, so I wouldn't necessarily know if I did a week if something went wrong. So what I needed to get started, if you want to solve the problem the way that I did, you will need to have the libraries Twilio.rest, pandas, and search tweets. And you can just pip install Twilio.rest, pip install pandas, and pip install search tweets. You will also need to create a Twitter app, which allows you to connect to the API. And there's a link inside of my GitHub repository. And you can also apply for access if you don't have access at t.co/Twitter apply for access. And you will also need a YAML file for your secrets. How many people have used YAML before? So YAML, the way that I like to think about it is that YAML kind of looks like JSON, but without the quotes. But it is like a similar key value store. So you can kind of see an example YAML file here. And the first step, actually, is to connect to Twilio. So let's walk through a script. I actually saw that in the Twilio booth, they had a script that looked very similar to this on an index card, which is pretty awesome. So you can actually, the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to import the OS, which stands for operating system. And then we're also going to want to import from Twilio.rest client. And client helps you just connect. It's a built-in function that helps you connect to their endpoint. And so from here, you can see we have this function called Twilio connect, and it passes in no arguments. And then from here, we've set a variable to account SID. So it is os.environment get Twilio account SID. So you might be wondering, Jess, like, what is this? So I don't like to have my secrets inside of my file. There was a really great talk on keeping a secret earlier today that I went to that was really awesome. And I don't know, I don't like to have things stored in there because I don't know, I'm probably likely to push it to GitHub accidentally and get it leaked and it's bad. So I always like to do environment variables. So inside of my terminal, I will type things that look like this for each of my secrets before I get started building anything. So I have this export Twilio SID with my secret, export Twilio auth token, all of that already set into my environment variables. And then from here, what I can do is I can just write this os.environment get Twilio account SID and auth token, and then I pass in the client, and the client basically authenticates me. And the way that I like to think about authentication in general to APIs is that it's kind of like you're going to this like very secret cool bar, and you have to like have a secret handshake to get in. When you write a function like this, you're basically setting up the secret handshake to get in. And so now let's get to the fun part. So from here, we're going to create a function called send message, and we're going to pass in the client into there as the argument. And then we're going to want to return out this client.messages.create. And we're going to want to send this from our Twilio phone number to our own personal cell phone number. And the body of the text, we're going to want to say something like, you don't have to move your car tonight, enjoy your night. On my server, it says, enjoy your night, Jess. It's very like personalized to me. At one point, I actually had it pass in the text of the tweet. You can vary this up a bit, but for the purposes of simplicity for today, I decided to just kind of put it in that way. So now let's talk a little bit about how to connect to Twitter. And let's actually switch over to a Jupyter notebook. I have a version of this running on my GitHub if you want to follow along. But I always like working with Jupyter notebooks for things like this because you can see the data right away. So if you make a mistake, you can be like, oh, OK, cool, this isn't working. And I typically tend to like create, and when I work with data like this, stuff inside of a Jupyter notebook, and then from there, download the script as well. So from here, we can import in the datetime module that's built into the standard library. And we can import pandas SPD, which lets us work with the data a little bit more robustly. And then we can also import in search tweets with the result stream function, the general role payload, and loading credentials. And then from the script we just looked at, we can import in Twilio Connect, and we can also import in the function called Twilio Connect and send message. So let's run that. And then also we can create a variable called search args, which passes in our secret handshake, but for Twitter using that secret YAML file. And let's take a look at what that looks like. So if we go to here, we can actually see where we've put in the search tweets API as the key. And then we can actually see the account type. And then we have our endpoint that we're going to pass in. And where it says EMV name, that's the name of your environment, your development environment. So you can name that whatever you want. You'll actually see that mine is called Testaroo in about a minute, which, I don't know, my coworker Emily, she always uses that. So I've kind of taken it from her. And I always call my development environment Testaroo. And then from here, you can also see the consumer key and the consumer secret, and I would also pass in my bearer token, and that's like what I need to have the secret handshake to connect to the Twitter API. And so now let's run that, and then from here, we can actually create a variable for today. So using the built-in datetime module, we can do datetime.date.today, and we can also print out today as well. So that should be today's date, if we're doing it right. And then, since we want to go back 30 days, we can actually create a variable called start date and do datetime plus datetime time delta to subtract it by 30. So let's run that. And then from here, let's print out the start date, which should be 30 days from today, which was September 4th. What a good time that was. And then from here, let's create a rule. So we're going to use the general rule payload to kind of say like what we are looking for from Twitter data. So from here, we want to say that it's from the NYC ASP Twitter handle. And from here, we're going to set the from date as the start date and the to date as today. And then we're going to want to put 500 results for Carl just in case some crazy emergency situation happened and weird things happen in New York, so it's possible. And then from here, we could print the role. How many people have worked with a REST client like Postman or Insomnia? Awesome, a lot of people in the room. So at this point, this is what we would pass into something like Postman and Insomnia. Sometimes I like to do that just to make sure everything is kosher before I go in with something like this as well. And then from here, we can set a variable called rs to create a result stream. And this kind of is going to be the stream of tweets that we're going to get back. So we're going to pass in the role payload as the role that we just created. That's the variable we just created. And then we can pass in the max results as 500. And the max number of pages is as 1. And then we can also use keyword arguments using these double stars, or double asterisks rather, for search args. Actually, inside of the resources on my GitHub, I actually put in a really great article by Trey Hunter on what keyword arguments are. So if you are unfamiliar with that, there's a really great article that you can take a look at. And then from here, we can actually print out our results stream. And this is where you guys can see, or where you all rather can see that I've named my environment variable, or my developer environment name, tester-roo. So we can actually see here our username, which is null, our endpoint that we're hitting, and the role payload. And then we have this tweetify, which puts it into a tweet-like object, and the max results as 500. So now we can create a variable called tweets and pass in the rs.stream into that. And I always like to put it into a list first. So I'm just taking that object and passing it into a list and calling it list tweets, real creative here. And then I just like to do some list comprehension with just to make sure that things look cool as I go. So now we can kind of see that tomorrow alternate side of the street parking rules are in effect today, actually. But that was yesterday that it was posted. But you can kind of see the tweets here, and you can kind of see when it was suspended. And they always tweet the same thing, which is really great for doing this type of structured work. They never really tweet anything different. And so it was really easy to create this. They're not that creative, so it's really awesome. It actually works out really great for building this type of solution. So now I'm going to pass these into empty lists. So I create one because the only two columns that I really need to work with here are tweet text and tweet date. So from here, I'm going to create an empty list for tweet text and one for tweet date. And then I can create a loop to kind of append everything into it. So from here, I can say for tweet in list tweets, we can tweet, or we can pass in the tweet text and the tweet created by date, which is called created at. And now this is where I put it into a data frame. I just like to work with data frames when I do this type of work because it's easier to debug if something goes wrong. So I have a variable called df, and I pass in pd.dataframe tweet text and tweet date. Those are the two columns that we've been working with. We're going to run that, and then we actually can take a look at the data frame here. And now we can see this in the same tweets from earlier, but in a data frame, which is really awesome. And so from here, we can, this is the fun part. This is where we use the script that we just looked at. So we can create an object called client, and we can pass in Twilio connect. That was that function that we wrote earlier that lets us connect to Twilio. And now this is where all the magic happens in this one line of code. So in this section where it says, if the word suspended appears in the column tweet at the 0th value, and if tomorrow also appears, it will send a message, and then it will print out text sent. Or if not, then it's just going to print not today, friend, and then else not today, friend. So it shouldn't print out, and things are running, so no text would be sent today. So that's pretty exciting. If the right conditions are met, though, I will get a text that looks like this. I have this running on my server twice a day. I think it's 11:30 and 7:30 these days. And so it just will tell me if I don't have to move my car the next day. So that's what happens if the right conditions are met, which is pretty awesome. So let's talk a little bit about deployment for a minute. So currently, this is deployed to a DigitalOcean server using a cron job. And so I've just set 2 cron jobs to run it at 11:30 and 7:30. And if the right conditions are met, I got a text the other day telling me that I didn't have to move my car for Rosh Hashanah, which was really exciting. Even though I don't have a car anymore, I recently got rid of my car, because when you're building infrastructure to like help you have a car, it's probably a good idea to not have a car. But it was really handy when I did have a car. I was actually in Brazil giving a talk, and my roommate was supposed to move my car, but it was snowing, and I was like really nervous about how this was going to go down. I was like, I don't know if I trust my roommate to like move my car in the snow. Like, that's a tall order, right? And I got a text being like, you don't have to move your car tomorrow. And I was like, this is awesome because of time zones. And so I was able to text my roommate and be like, yeah, you don't have to move my car while I'm in Brazil. This is great. It was really awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the feature of the Twitter API. So Twitter Developer Labs was recently released. And it's a new program that allows developers to partner with us to create and shape the future of our API. And one thing, so about 2 weeks ago, we released a new endpoint called filtered stream, and I was like, oh my god, this would have been perfect. Maybe I should like rewrite my code before Pygotham. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't like rewrite my code, but another way to solve this problem would be to use filtered stream, and I'm probably going to be working on that pretty soon. So if anybody wants to partner with me, let me know after, and we can talk about that. And you can find out more about this endpoint at t.co/lab/filtered stream. You can also check out our product roadmap for what we're building at t.co/dev-platform roadmap. And you can sign up for labs at t.co/labs. And you can also give us feedback. So if you are building something with the Twitter API, and you just notice something that you wish was different, or you have an idea for a feature, or something that you want to see, let us know. We'd love to work with you on that. So t.co/developer feedback. And let's actually go into the conclusion. So you might be wondering, Jess, why didn't you make this so you did get a text when you do have to move a car versus when you don't have to move a car? When I was first creating this code, a lot of people were like, what? Like, why? Why are you doing it this way? And the response was, it's just not the problem that I was facing. I was really good at moving my car when I needed to. Like, my whole life kind of revolved around this one nightly habit. It was really kind of sad, but it was cool. Some people have dogs. I had a car. It's cool. It just wasn't the problem that I was facing, but this code could be easily adapted so you can make it so that you do get a text when you do have to move your car. And so I want everyone in this room to kind of think about a problem that you have in your life that you could solve with code. And let me know if you think of anything cool. And also, if you want to see a blog post version of this talk, you can check it out at t.co/parkingpost. And if this inspires you to create anything, please let me know at Jessica Garson. I know that this actually has inspired someone who saw it in a very early version of this talk about a year ago. She created an app called Train Tracker, which, lets you, yay for being nervous. I somehow get nervous at the end of talks and not at the beginning of talks. It's really funny. But yeah, she created this really cool app that lets you that uses Twitter data to track trains here in New York. So it's really awesome. And also my coworker Aurelia, who's in the room, she lives in London, and she's working on something really similar to help her figure out when trains are delayed on her tube line. So talk to her as well if you're interested in that as well. But yeah, if this inspires you to create anything, please let me know. This has now inspired, I think, about 3 people to create things, and every time it's made my day, so please let me know. And you can also let us know at TwitterDev on Twitter or on the Twitter community forums as well. And we're hiring as well, so if you want to be my coworker and work on things like this, careers.twitter.com, and you can come and find me, Aurelia, or Emily after this talk as well. Thank you.